convening the meeting for the Metropolitan Cable Commission. We're going to, I'll call this meeting to order. And I'd like to start with quick introductions for those who don't know who we are. My name is Randy Groves. I am a city councilor for Eugene, Ward 8, and I'm chair of the Metropolitan Policy Commission, which makes me the de facto chair of the Metropolitan Cable Commission. Welcome, and Commissioner Buck, would you like to go next?
I'm Heather Buck, Lane County Commissioner for District 5.
Mayor Venice.
Lucy Venice, Mayor of Eugene.
Councilor Moe.
Steve Moe, Councilor for the City of Springfield. I do not have any video, but I hope we have audio.
We can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Okay.
And Ann, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Ann Davies. I am the Cable Commission staff from Lane Council of Governments, and I work with jurisdictional staff from the City of Eugene, City of Springfield, and Lane County to manage the Comcast cable television frame.
Thank you, Ann. Do you have other staff you would like to introduce?
Michael Wist here. I think as soon as he talks, the camera will switch to him.
Yeah, Michael Wist, the Government Services Director for LCOG.
Hello, Michael. And then Hua Go.
Hello, I'm Hua Go. I am one of the attorneys for the City of Eugene.
Thank you, Hua. Okay, let's dig into this. We have two real agenda items for us today. Let's start with 5A, which is Cable TV Grant Program Expenditures on Capital Equipment. Ann.
So I will back up just a little bit. We've got a few commissioners today who have not dealt with the Cable Commission before. So just for your information, the three jurisdictions have a cable franchise with Comcast. I'm just going to use short terms here today, Comcast of Oregon 2 or something. And so every year, pursuant to the terms of our franchise agreement with Comcast, Comcast gives the jurisdictions $100,000 annually. $50,000 of that 100 goes to the public PEG channel. PEG stands for Public Education and Government. So the government channel gets 50,000, and then 50,000 of that 100 is put into a process where we provide grants to the other PEG channels during the year. So that's what this is. We have this grant process. We put out an invitation to the education and the public channel, and Springfield Fire has a scrambled channel that's also included. So that gives us the opportunity for those channels to look at their camera equipment, video equipment, decide what they need, and make a request as part of this grant process. So that's what we did this year, and we got some requests from the different PEG channels, and they're listed out in the agenda, the memo that I put out. The staff got together, reviewed those applications, and the total requested dollar amount came out to significantly less than 50,000. And Neil Moyer is kind of our expert on staff and indicated that he thought all of the requests were reasonable and probably necessary. So we are recommending approval of those requests. Bo gives that explanation, and then there are attachments that are the applications, and then a list of the items that are being requested.
Would it be beneficial to just briefly go through those, just at a high level, just for those, anyone who's listening in? In fact, I don't even know if we have anybody from the public listening, but they aren't going to necessarily know what those items are before we vote on them.
Yeah, and I'm probably not the best person to do this. I'm not techie, I don't know the equipment, but on page 1 of 1, I think it's the first attachment. It's the staff recommended awards. The first one in the list is Eugene Springfield Fire Scramble channel, and they use that channel for training. So it's only the Eugene Springfield staff who are able to view that channel. They have listed out different studio equipment, monitors, cameras, stand mounts, other equipment that they're needing to keep their studio up to date and able to do the work that they do. The second request is from Community Television, which is our public channel. And they have requested 4 new Mac Studio computers. They had some old computers that were very out of date and weren't able to do some of the technology work that they need. So all that they requested were some more high quality computers than what they currently have. And then the education channel, and I'll just kind of give a background for the people who are not familiar with Cable Commission. LCC had a channel that was the LCC channel, that technically it was the E under PEG education. It has since moved to the U of O. So we're now calling it the education channel instead of the LCC channel. Neil Moyer with Metro TV is helping them with that. So we now have this education channel that is located at the U of O. And they're still kind of getting going. So they have a list of equipment and racks, recorders, and other equipment that they've requested. And Neil Moyer is very familiar with what they're doing and what they need, and has indicated to us that everything that they've requested is reasonable and appropriate.
Great, thank you. And I've got a list of 3 commission members that would like to speak. But before I open that up, I just want to add the Eugene Springfield Fire scrambled cable channel. It's actually used for more than training. It's used for communication from command staff to the firefighters in the field, 16 different remote site stations, as well as fire marshal's office and administrative and training staff can all tune into that. It's also used for operational deployments, information on weather fronts coming in, conflagrations that firefighters are preparing to deploy to. So it really is a great asset to have. And with that, Commissioner Buck, you're first in the queue, followed by Mayor Venice.
Thank you, Chair. So I see that it's mostly equipment that pretty much everybody's been asking for here. And since it doesn't equal up to $50,000, what happens to the remaining amount?
Yeah, so that will roll over into the next year. We'll get another 50,000 next year, and whatever's left over from this year, we'll just have that available. There are some years where there's more need than others, and so there will be 60 plus next year to distribute.
That helps. That answers my second question, because I saw in some years it was more than 50. And okay, thank you.
Also, just for your information, there was a request I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago now, to reserve that money for the equipment to outfit the new city hall. So there is money sitting in reserve that we're saving for purchasing equipment for the new city hall for the city of Eugene. But after a few years, that accumulated enough money, so it's sitting there, and now we're back to distributing $50,000 a year.
Thank you, Mayor Venice, followed by Councilor Moe.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chair, and thank you. I've been through this process before, and I appreciate this opportunity to kind of revisit this. And so I have 2 points. One is just a question about explaining a little bit more, if anyone can explain a little bit more about the education channel and the transition to the U of O, and what that is how that's gonna, who's gonna be impacted by that switch, and is that an improvement, and how does that look? That's my first question. I'm totally supportive of this. The second thing is, I can't tell from my phone if we have members of the public, and we did not actually open this for public testimony. So I'm just hoping someone will just take a look and see if there are people in the queue that might want to speak to this before the commissioners vote on this item.
Mayor, thank you for pointing that out. I actually figured that out shortly after I opened this first agenda item, and I was planning on going back and picking up the pieces I missed before we vote on this, and then the next item. Thank you for raising that.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, Mayor, was that it?
Yeah, I would just love if anyone could provide a little more information about that transition from the education channel from the LCC to the U of O and what the implications are of that, aside from that they're getting going. It would be interesting to hear.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Neil, do you know if Neil Moyer's on, Laura? No. So Neil Moyer is the person with the most information about that. I'm sorry, I'm not helpful.
He's unmuted.
I am on, yeah.
Neil, do you want to go ahead with that?
Can you hear me now?
Can hear you now.
All right, sorry, I'm driving up to the public access station right now to work with Comcast to fix an issue up there. But the educational channel, it's LCC surrendered it a couple years ago. They didn't want to run it anymore. So LCOG has taken it over. The plan is to try to keep LCC involved, include U of O. Also want to try to get local high schools involved to make it a complete educational experience where we're not just the content. Like right now, we're running a bunch of old LCC classes, as well as some newer bits. We found some history pieces and things like that. We like for it to be educational in nature so that folks are learning how to make content and also learning the back end networking and broadcast equipment, how to run that. So it'd be neat if it was kind of a trade skill opportunity for folks to learn how to work in the equipment, get jobs elsewhere. So that's the goal. I'm talking with the U of O and trying to work through it with them. We haven't actually got everything set up yet. We're just talking about it now. So that is a good basic outline of what's happening now at the educational channel.
That sounds great. Thank you for that explanation. That sounds like a really exciting improvement, actually.
Could be really good, yes.
Thank you, Neil, for that additional information. And thank you, Mayor, for asking the question. Councillor Moe.
I apologize for being late or getting you guys signed up, but I could get video and and you couldn't hear me. And then when you sent me an email, I can't get to my email to answer it because I've got video on the screen. So I had to back clear out and answer you. So I would suggest in the future for me, text my phone number and I'll give it to you, Randy, later. And then just text me and that would help me a lot. And I can just stay on the Zoom video. Now, next question, Eugene Springfield Fire Training. It was real interesting, Randy, to tell me all the uses that the fire department is using over then fire training. But what I noticed was a lot of it seems to be used for the same thing that we use radio communication for. It sounds like an overlap. How does that work? And then you don't have to answer that yet. And then we're going to recommend $33,000 out of a budget of $50,000. Is there any time during the year we'd go back and revisit that for maybe some other group or organization that could use some of this? That's it.
I can answer that first, Chair Groves, and then you can do your piece if you want. We haven't done anything more than an annual grant process. I mean, it's not a lot of work, but it's definitely, significant enough that it'll really only make sense to do it once a year. And we do reach out and make sure that they have plenty of time to figure out what equipment they need. I think we actually thought about this last year with regard to the education channel of having another opportunity during the year. So certainly if a channel came to us and we wanted to do that, we could put that out there. I'm not sure if we would need the MPC approval to do that. But the way it's set up now, the MPC has decided to do it the Cable Commission, has decided to do it every year. So that's how we do it.
Yeah, a year is a long time. So that would be a good opportunity if somebody really needed something in the meantime.
I like the flexibility of that.
Yeah.
Commissioner, or keep wanting to call you Commissioner today, Councillor Moe.
Call me anything.
and I would appreciate getting your contact information. That would,
Yeah,
that
back
would
and
be
forth
helpful on a
between you and I.
number of levels, and I'm happy to share mine as well. The scrambled cable channel that fire and EMS use is used differently than radio. Radio basically are short bursts of transmissions, usually more in the tactical environment, a little bit of an incident-specific strategic environment, where the cable channel allows us to transmit both voice and images. And there's a production studio at Second Chambers that can seize and send this information out. And sometimes graphics are used, especially with weatherfront coming in. I'm not completely up to date on how it is used today, because I know there's a lot of things that have occurred since with computer access. Personally, I think it's a good idea to have this just as a redundant system with the computerized information connections, but that's kind of the difference between the two. And then for training, of course, there's all kinds of things from post-incident evaluations to ongoing recurrent training that's required to maintain certifications. And the reason it's scrambled is there's frequently things on there that are not appropriate for public consumption. We get live footage feeds from, or at least we used to belong to a thing called FETN, Fire and Emergency Training Network, which is like the CNN of the fire service. And for example, during 9/11, film crews were in the hot zone. And so we were seeing things that the public shouldn't. They're quite disturbing, but important professionally to learn and develop and understand. So hopefully that helps explain a little bit more.
Yeah, I wasn't so much criticizing your description is curious, and that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's if there's no more questions, let me go back and pick up some of the things I missed. I was trying to do it from memory, and this is a good reminder of why we have checklists. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? I'm not seeing any. So let's move on to, is anyone from the public watching, and are there comments from the audience? And do we have anyone watching?
People that we have on are Neil Obringer, who is franchise staff from the city of Springfield, and Pam Berrien, who is franchise staff from the city of Eugene. So no one else from the public is shown on here. Okay, thank you. Well, let's move on. Do we have a motion to accept the recommendations?
I was going to make that, and I can't find it now. Somebody else is going to have to do it. Wait a minute. Let's see. Okay, this is Steve Moe. I move to approve the staff recommendations for distribution of the 2022 BGPEG grants.
Thank you, Councilor Moe. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
This is Lucy Venice. I'll second.
Seconded by Mayor Venice. Well, we have a small enough group. I'm going to go back to the old way of doing this. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. We are now moving on to agenda item 5B, update on franchise renewal negotiations. Ann, please.
Thank you. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background. I'm trying not to get too detailed, but enough so that the people who are fresh to these issues have some idea what we're doing. So the three jurisdictions each have similar franchises with Comcast. So it's a 3-jurisdiction organization, but they each have their own ordinances approving the franchise with Comcast. The existing one that we have was originally set to expire in August of 2018. We started negotiations a year or two before that, mainly to not completely revamp the franchise, but just to kind of surgically look at issues that needed to be updated. We've been doing that now for about 4 or 5 years. Some issues came up with the FCC and court cases that had us put everything on hold while we waited while that kind of settled, and other issues that have come up. So we continue to extend the franchise and we now have an extension through the end of this year. The one issue that has kind of had us at a halt is the competitive equity issue. And I tried to give an explanation of what exactly that means in the memo. It basically is in the Cable Act, there's a requirement that cable operator, that franchising authorities, which is us, treat cable operators the same, equally. So you don't want to give a competitive advantage to one cable operator over another cable operator. So you have to, if you're a cable operator, you have to be treating other cable operators the same. With streaming services coming on board, which sometimes are provided by operators, but not provided by cable operators, the issue has come up about how you treat those. So what Comcast has proposed is some language in the franchise that would require us to treat Comcast as we treat other non-cable operators. And that has provided complications for us for lots of reasons, some of them specific to our city ordinances. In particular, as part of the Cable Commission, we have Lane County that's involved, and Lane County does not have franchising authority for non-cable operators. So it's an issue that we have not been able to come to agreement on because the language that they're proposing is something that we just can't recommend that the Cable Commission do. So what we did in the last month, we sent a memo to Comcast that a solution that we proposed that was that if a operator, competitive operator came on the scene in our area, that Comcast could say, we think this operator competitor is a competitor under the Cable Act. And if they think that that's true, then they can go to court and have a declaratory action in circuit court to determine whether that is a true competitor under the Cable Act or not. The memo that I gave you is dated June 21st, and we got a response to our memo on June 21st. So our response from Comcast is not in your packet because we had already gone to print by the time we got that response back. And the response from Comcast was pretty much, we won't agree to that. So we're in a place right now where we feel like, staff feels like we need a little bit more time to look at that response and perhaps have city attorneys provide confidential advice to each city and the county about how to proceed. So we may be looking at coming back in a month or 2 months with some information, or the city attorneys might provide that confidential advice separate from coming in front of MPC, Cable Commission. Hua Go, who is the Eugene city attorney, is also online and she can speak. She's been included as a panelist. If she has anything to add, or if you have any questions of me or Hua, we can try to answer them.
Thanks, Anne. This is Hua Go. I'm here sort of as a proxy for the group of the city attorney for Springfield, as well as for the county. They weren't able to make it, but I think the only things that I would add to what Anne has said is we, as jurisdictions, have no incentive for wanting to give, like as Anne said, a competitive advantage to other providers. Our issue with the difficulty that we've had with the language that has been proposed by Comcast is that it appears to us to be too broad. It would pull in other video programming providers that are not cable operators. And we have restrictions that in the way that we're able to to regulate those other providers. We have no problem. We believe in our current franchise, have a competitive equity provision for other cable operators saying, yeah, we will not give more favorable terms. If that occurs, then we would negotiate with Comcast. But the problem we have now is that the language that Comcast is insisting on is too broad.
Thank you, Hua. And I see we have Mayor Venice's hand up, but before we do that, I just want to kind of frame what the action requested is, which is basically information and discussion, and provide direction to staff if necessary. And maybe that will help frame this next sequence here. So Mayor Venice.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So Comcast, in their suggestion that they be lumped together with non-cable operators, that was their suggestion, and then we came back and said no, because that's not going to work for us, but we will give you if someone emerges on the scene, we'll give you the capacity to claim that's a competitor, and then we can be assured that we will balance the fee arrangements. So what's at stake here? I mean, I guess I have a couple of questions, and Hua, maybe you can clarify some of this. I mean, the first question is, if Comcast is lumped together with non-cable providers, then I don't know what that means in terms of our right-of-way fees. Like, then do they not pay them because we're treating them as the way we treat a streaming service? Or what is that why they're interested? Is that why they propose that? And secondly, why did they say no so quickly to this option, which seems, and is that because it's really about the money?
Do you want to start, Hua?
Sure. Mayor, those are really good questions. And I think I would be speculating a bit on answering some of that. I do think these are always very probably, if not the top concern from both sides, then it's certainly top 3 concerns in issues like this. I might just preface too that I think some of this discussion, and this is what we talked about in our last staff meeting, is that we thought some of this discussion would lead toward questions that you have that we think would be leading into confidential legal advice. And so I think what I would like to propose is to take the questions that you have and then to have the attorneys work together to provide that to you in a confidential manner.
That makes total sense to me because I realize how delicate this is. And so I appreciate that.
I agree. I'm sitting here nodding my head, and I know you.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing. Okay, Mayor Venice, if you're finished, we'll move on to Councilor Moe.
A few years ago, when Comcast had their store here in Springfield, it was pretty handy, and they took it out. And I'm a Springfielder. I'm saying they can't do that to us, and it looks like they're going to provide a store. I'm really glad of that, and I support that. I don't know where it's going to be, but for our Springfield users, it's going to be really handy for us. So thank you, Comcast.
Thank you, Councilor Moe. Commissioner Buck.
Chair, I understand the issue, I believe, but I do have a technical question. This says they proposed a competitive equity language, but it sounds like in the description, it's more of a competitive equality language, and equality is not the same as equity. They're very, very different. And if we're talking about equity, I think we need a lot more analysis on what is actually equitable So I'm just trying to clarify which one it truly is.
I'll just say that that's kind of the term in the industry that people use, competitive equity. And you might have a really good point, is that it's kind of a misnomer. But that's just kind of like a term of art that people use as competitive equity.
If I could just jump in really quickly, Commissioner, I take your point on that, and I think that's one of the concerns that we as staff have discussed as well, that in franchises you could have different terms and conditions for different franchisees that are still equitable, but they're not exactly the same. They're not identical. And I think that that's the point that you're getting at, that's a concern that we have as well.
Thank you, because the language in and of itself confuses me.
You know, is there any way we can nail this down a little tighter? I mean, it seems like we're all struggling with some of the ambiguity here. And so I'll just leave my question at that.
Yeah, as far as an answer, I mean, if it was, I don't know if that was a
question. Is there anything we can do to tighten this up?
I think Hua's suggestion is really where we are, and what we're recommending is that we take this response that you haven't seen yet, but you will probably, as if we do go the route that Hua is suggesting, which is that the attorneys get together in a confidential manner to give their legal advice, we can hopefully as a group figure that out.
So would that require the Cable Commission to reconvene so we could make a motion to approve that, or is there a less formal process for that?
Less formal process. I mean, I think that you can give, you know, we've had this discussion, and you can all, I don't even know that you need to take a motion, that's the route we're going to go. My first thought was that we would want to set a time to come back to the MPC, but that could be a month, it could be 2 months, it could be 3 months, depending on how long the legal advice takes.
So is there anything that we need to make a motion on here today then to tighten this up and give direction?
I don't believe so, unless Hua has a different idea.
Randy, we're talking about legal here, you know, go back and forth a few times. That's the way it works.
Right. But I mean, do we need to, I was just asking if we need as a commission to, you know, basically provide the direction to go forth and negotiate.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't think you need a motion to do that, but this discussion is fine. If you all agree that what Hua has suggested is the route to go, then I think that we're fine if everyone just agrees to that.
I'm hearing consensus. I just didn't know how formal we needed to be.
I'm good with that.
Yep.
And so I'm not seeing any issues from commission members that they disagree with that statement, that we're looking for more. Okay, well, I'll take that as agreement. And Mayor Venice, you have your hand up, or did you have another comment?
No, that's just a random, like, it's a small phone, bright sunlight, can't see what I'm doing. Thank you.
I have the same problem. Small buttons, big uncoordinated fingers, small thumbs.
Thank you. No, I'm good with this. I think this is right. I support Hua's suggestion of how to take the next step.
Great. That sounds like we're all in agreement then. I am not seeing anything else. Anne, is there more to that you want to present or talk about?
That covers everything.
Okay. Are there any comments?
Yes, Randy.
Yes, Councilor Moe.
I'm going to give you my phone number, and if you would text me yours, then we can have communication.
Perfect.
I'll give it to you now if you like.
Shoot.
541. Okay.
I didn't know if you wanted to put it in the message. Well, I guess we don't have a messenger.
No, I don't
Okay.
mind. It's public.
All right.
541-95175.
Very good. I'll text you mine.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Well, seeing no more business to come before the Cable Commission, I adjourn the meeting. Thank you.